So, to go into a bit of detail, let you know who I am, why I'm here. Why am I here? My name's Kevin Lake. I was born to a poor family out on West Mountain. Anybody know where West Mountain is? One person? Okay. It's out by Payson, Utah. They like to call the be separate. First, let me get to know my audience. Who here is actually really does drive? Most people, I'd hope. Okay, great. How many of you been with your in transportation for a year? Okay, 5 years? 10 years? 15? Do we have any 20 years? 20? 25? We're going higher? Okay, that's great. So, yeah, you can get out of it, right? I kid. Anyway, my life experience, Dad wasn't in the picture. So I was raised out on a small farm. Grandma had some chickens by my grandmother, my mother, and my sister, who was 9 years older than me. So she made my life a living heck until I hit about 10 and I became the same height as her. So my sister was born with a cleft palate, bad heart, hair lip, bunch of other medical issues. And Mom, she fell off. She was working, packing cherries, sorting cherries. She fell and hurt her back. Grandma retired, so yeah, we grew up poor, and they say, oh, I was happy to grow up poor. Not me. It was miserable. I hated it. So anyway, so that was my life. So growing up, my sister would love to come up and she'd smack me, and if you can't hit her back, you might kill her. And just kidding. Our family loved each other, but yeah, we're a family, so sometimes you get along, sometimes you don't. So I always fought back creatively. Well, no, I didn't, but I don't know how that dog poop ended up in her shoe. I have no clue. They just said I couldn't hit her. They didn't say I couldn't use psychological warfare. But seeing her grow up, Mom, who later in life, she developed rheumatoid arthritis, osteoporosis. She lost her voice box and a third of a lung to cancers caused by smoking. Don't do that, kids. And I became her primary caregiver. So I've worked, and then I had two cousins. One was autistic, and then my cousin, he was hit by a lady, and then she backed up to see what she hit. Ooh. Yeah, so they'd come to visit over the summer, and he'd smoke 3 cigarettes at once, one in each. So I, from a very early age, I saw how people treated my sister. And there was more than once when she came home with chewing tobacco in her hair. Some little darling in high school, would spit on her because she was different. And so I went on with my life, Mom's primary caregiver. This was before FMLA, so she had at least a doctor's appointment a week, it seemed. And so it was hard to hold down a job. Debt was piling up, and eventually we held the Olympics there in Salt Lake City, and I went and worked a concession stand, and in my beat-up old truck, I drove a carpool with 2 other people that worked there. And as the Olympics were finishing, this sweet lady says, "You're such a good driver, you should go work for paratransit." I said, "What in the world's paratransit?" And she says, "They drive elderly and people with disabilities." I says, "Well, yeah, it might work if they can work with my schedule." So after the Olympics, I applied, and they've kept me around for 21 years. So I guess they're suckers. So I did 13 as a driver, split shifts, the whole 9 yards, the many fun adventures we had. Before 8 years ago, I guess it'd be, I came in as the trainer, operations manager, drug alcohol program manager, you name it. And who here ever thought, by raise of hands, I'm going to go into transport as a kid? Whose dream was that? Right, but here we are, and we stay, right? And it's who here thinks, by show of hands, who thinks you have the best passengers? Yeah. Right? Well, here's where you're wrong. You think you have the best passengers, but I know we have the best passengers. So anyway, that's my background. And I have many more fun stories of growing up on the farm, but we're not going to go into those. So on that handout, which luckily it didn't crash, it talks about the PASS training. So I got to go and do this, passenger assistance, safety and sensitivity. And basically there's an amazing organization. Their spy is in the back corner there watching me to see if I mess up too bad. And is here as a lifeline for me mostly. So CTAA is a really neat organization. They got together all kinds of transportation leaders, trainers, and they came up with this PASS training, passenger assistance, safety, and sensitivity. And what it does is it's just a really good all-around program to train people on pretty much everything you need to know about helping passengers. How to deal with, and I'm going to click through it here as a reminder, unless it's broke on here too. I'm looking forward to AI when I can curse the computer and it understands me. When threats of violence work. Okay, helps if we turn on power to the clicker. Nope, that's not doing it either. I know how to fix this one though. All right, there we go. Let's see if I clicked on the right one. Sorry, I'm a little annoyed. So, this is the one I want. All right, now we're cooking with gas. All right, so basically they're based out of Washington, D.C. Don't hold that against them. They're okay. They're some of the good ones. And basically it's just help you to become proficient with transportation. It gives you, you get a certification that's good for 2 years. And with it, it covers everything. How to communicate with passengers, how to deal with service animals. Like the gentleman before, they talked about ADA and compliance, all that you need to know. And we'll go into that just very briefly. It talks about being a professional, how you be a professional, how to interact with customers. This is much funner when you can see the slides, I promise. I'm sorry. Let's see. So some of the things I like is it talks about customer sensitivity. And we're going to go into that more detail next hour when you get to suffer through me again. But they talk about like dialysis patients. You think you're having a bad day. Well, think about what they're going through. What they've had to endure that day. They talk about how, what's the average ride time? For us, it's probably 20, 25 minutes, maybe. So even if I'm having a bad day, I should be able to set that aside for 20 minutes and be nice to that passenger. Because our passengers already have enough going on in their lives. They're having bad days too. They don't need our stuff dumped on them. So that's one thing, takeaway I took from this program, that just as a reminder that's her, I forgot about that. Yeah, my boss can be a little annoying, but I can set that aside for 20 minutes. I have to say that because he's sitting right behind you, sir. So, I can put that aside for 20, 25 minutes and give this passenger the ride they deserve. Make sure that they're comfortable, that they're safe, that they feel welcomed, that they feel like they're not a burden or a package just being delivered. Like I said, one of my main jobs is training all of our new drivers. And it's interesting to interact with them when they don't really have a lot of experience working with the elderly or people with disabilities, or, and to try to explain to them everything we already know. People, just treat them that way. Come on. So, if we're not nice, of course, we drive our customers away, or if there's competition to the competition, they just, won't use us, and then we're out of business. Another thing I liked was, if you're having a bad day, don't keep it inside. Talk it out. Talk to your fellow drivers. Talk to your management. If you have a problem, let management know. They should be willing to listen to you. And while I give my boss, Gary, there a hard time, his door is always open. He's willing to listen. I understand not all companies have that policy, but Gary's is door open. You got a problem, come talk to me. So, and talking to each other, meeting here, it's cheaper than therapy. So, they train, know what your policies are, things like that. Offer assistance to every passenger. Again, like the ADA guru, if you're just offering it to the ones you like, that's discrimination. We also got to offer it to the ones that can be a bit grumpy. We got to set it aside. Be courteous, patient, all that fun stuff. They train on distracted driving, the obvious. Don't get distracted. They talk about the different types of distractions, the ones we make ourselves, with our own cell phones. They talk about environmental ones, traffic. They talk about company ones, the radio, the company cell phone, company vehicle, if it's having problems. So, and how we got to just, set it aside, let it go, find a way to deal with it. So, let's see. Okay. And then they give just, I don't know how well you can see it, but they give all kinds of fun facts, measurements. They have tons of videos. They show accidents that happen, and what the results are. Lawsuits, people going to jail, to remind you, to train us that we need to focus on our driving, focus on our passengers. So they, not taking hands off the wheel, distractions. Skip that because most of you can't see it. I'm really sorry about all this. I failed as a trainer. All right, they talk about driver fatigue. Well, one of the things they teach you in training is make sure your equipment works, which I thought it did. So, sorry. Set routines, don't get plenty of sleep, how to deal with stress. You had a good class on that. Did people like you? Was that helpful? Did you get anything useful out of that? That's good. So you're breathing. Yes. Count to 10. In, out. So yeah, they talk about how to cope with stress. Then passenger, just sensitivity training. Our passengers are people. A definition of a disability is. People first language. They have quite a bit on that, and it's really good training. It's very useful and informative. Knowing your passengers, and we're going to get into that a bit more in the next session. So that one's more fun. I don't need a laptop as much for that one. So, and then I'm going to see how many of you I can take out and injure. I mean, just kidding. Probably not. Maybe. We'll see. Hopefully you guys have good reflexes. In this, they talk about the different types of disabilities, mental disabilities versus physical disabilities, autism, what kind of learning disabilities. Then, of course, they go into hidden ones, people on diabetes, people on dialysis. So, and then, of course, they have a huge thing on the ADA, which, where is it in here? Small horses. There's the Department of Transportation, I think it is. They say small horses recognize them as service animals. I haven't had that happen yet, but I would be fascinated to see that. And what does your horse do? When you were in that, as I slipped in like a ninja to that first session, poor guy, I felt bad for him. He's talking about service animals versus emotional support animals. And I find that interesting. To me, that's fascinating. Because somebody comes up with a snake, I'm going to be calling my dispatcher. Now, if they come with one of those, tarantulas from Australia that's as big as a dinner plate, I'm not opening that door. Dispatch! What do I do? So they talk a bit about policies, which is a good thing to have. What's in your policies? Our policy, anything out of the ordinary, keep the dispatcher in the loop. Call dispatch. And that also goes to documentation. I'm going to stray off of past just a little bit here. You're going to take this journey with me. So the big thing, I think, is just letting somebody know what's going on. So who was talking about that wheelchair that they altered? Is he still in here? He slipped out? Okay. So in that situation, what I've trained my drivers to do is you pick up the radio and you call dispatch and get them in the loop. Because our drivers may not have all the answers, but we know we should be able to find somebody that does. And in that situation, and this is when I train wheelchair securement, I train something is better than nothing. If you don't do anything and you're in an accident, you've got a 500, 600 pound person in projectile flying around the bus. Something's better than nothing. Right? The blue webbing straps, some are black webbing straps. Use those, do something. With those webbing straps, I have never found a person's wheelchair that I couldn't safely secure to the van. So, and years ago, the director, we were doing a rodeo, and I was on the committee, and they said, does anybody have any ideas for a training? And they says, Kevin, what would you like to do? What would you like to see? And we'd done fire extinguisher, and that was fun. But I says, what I'd really like to see is what one of these vans looks like up close. I think it was Logan had tipped one over, but we hadn't been able to go up and look at it, at least not up close. So I says, I'd like to tip one over and see what it looks like. Put all the stuff and, put some mannequins in there and knowing.
What a power chair does.
Right. Because I knew the boss would never let me do this.
Yeah.
So he gave me an old bus and says, run with it. Okay. So we did. We made mannequins. I got a power chair and a manual wheelchair donated. I went in and I strapped them down safely. That was my goal. And then we put mannequins just in the bench seats with the seatbelt on. And then we had a towing company come and they tipped the van over on the passenger side. We even had a driver, Eva Cade. She still works there. She's a CPR mannequin that we sewed into a pair of sweats. And she still helps me to this day. Anyway, it was really interesting because we saw that the people who use wheelchairs are going to be doing better in a fall side over accident because they have that shoulder belt. Where the ones just in the bench seats, they're just going to be flopping. They're not going to be, probably won't have the strength to right themselves. And so it was really interesting. So, and now you've taken that little journey with me, and now I got to remember where I was. Anyway, so yeah, the key is something's better than nothing. With that, I don't think I used blue straps on that, but in hindsight, I wish I had to try them out. So, but anyway, blue straps, they're awesome. Okay, let's move on. Oh, goodness, we killed a lot of time with that error. As far as you know, it was an accident. Okay, let's move on. They talk about communicating with your passengers, and they have a fun video I love. Let's see what would be a good example. Tone of voice, basically, inflection. How you talk to people makes a big difference. How you talk to people makes a big difference. How you talk to people makes a big difference. Little things like that, you know. Is it going to come across as sarcasm? You got to be careful with that. People with a hearing impairment, they just read body language. What's your body language saying? You can be as happy and sound as nice as you want, but if your body language is saying something different, so little things. They go into that in detail. It's really cool. And they cover all kinds of things. Service animals. Oh, here it is. Yeah, miniature horses that have been individually trained to do work or perform tasks. I still want to see that. That would be so cool. Let's skip past service animals. Talk about, medical conditions. Anyway, they go into tons of stuff. It's really good training. Let me bring up my other presentation here quick. There we go. And we'll talk a little bit more about CTAA. And my lifeline can be ready to assist me. So they've been around, correct me if I'm wrong, for 30 years. They're a nonprofit, and they teach this program annually to thousands of drivers. So how it works is if you're interested, you can either call me, or I see him hiding in the back corner there. He went through the training with me, Justin, and we could come and help you. We could train your drivers. Or you can go through CTAA and get someone trained to train your drivers. They don't train drivers themselves. They train the trainer type programs. So, right? Yep. One of the good reasons about this program is you're certified. And I know this is getting a little dry, and again, I apologize. But for liability, you have a certification. You have this training that says, I got this, and it's on record. So if there ever is a problem, it's right there. You've got it. They update it frequently. Every year they get together, pull them in, all these trainers, educators, and just, what do we need to fix? What do we need to update? What we need to add? What we need to remove? Do we need to look at? What are those hoverboards? Can that count as a mobility device? I personally wouldn't say so, but if they can bring it on the van safely and secure it, hold it themselves, maybe. I don't think it would count as a mobility device, but if it helps the person get around, because my way of looking at what we do is we're here to help. So we're 100 years ago, down in Provo, it was, the Wild West, 1960s. There were no curb cuts. Nothing was ADA compliant. People had trouble getting around, especially the elderly. So the elderly kept calling and asking the United Way, can you help me? I need to get to a doctor. I can't get my groceries. And so the United Way said, well, yeah, let's figure something out. So they got some old vans donated, they got some volunteers to come in, and they started helping the elderly in the community. And then they started getting people who used wheelchairs that says, I can't leave my driveway. I can't go anywhere. My road isn't even paved. Is there anything you can do? And so the United Way worked, and finally they got an old lift van donated, which sometimes worked, and they got volunteers to drive it. And so that's, how we got into the transportation business, how Utah Valley Paratransit was formed as part of the United Way. And then eventually UTA came in, they started doing bus service, looking into doing bus service, and they looked around, they saw us, and they says, you're pretty much doing our paratransit service. Would you like to officially bid? We can provide you with some better buses. Yeah, sure, why not? Buses that work all the time would be nice. and so that's how the United Way, Utah Valley Paratransit, and UTA all came to work together, in case you're interested. I find it fascinating. So, but I'm domesticated. When you're domesticated, it's the little things that excite you. So yeah, train the trainer. They do a really good wheelchair securement training. It's pretty cool. And then, yeah, they have the membership fees. And so the one I'd hoped to show you was on their bloodborne pathogen. It's humorous, but it's also very educational. And spoiler alert, it's a zombie riding one of the buses. So he's bleeding everywhere. And it's really good. I had really hoped to show that to you. So, okay, Karen Souza is their training director. And I'm going to make these slides available, this information. It'll be on URSTA. I'll get it to Stacy, so you have this information if you want it. And I strongly recommend you look into doing this if your agency can, because it's a good all-around training for customer sensitivity, wheelchairs, things like that. So, all right. Any questions on that? Now we're just staring at you to kill time. No, just kidding. Okay. The next hour is going to be funner. It's going to be a bit more interactive. Again, I'm going to take you out, see how many of you I can injure. Just kidding. Just bored am I? So, any questions? Go ahead.
I just want to say, I'm just so glad to see you have a personality, because the most engagement I've had with you has been you being a judge at the rodeo.
Oh.
And you just sit and stare.
Well, that's kind of my job at the time. I gotta put on a hat and.
I try and talk, and you just, nope, I can't talk.
Right, because yeah.
Oh, you've got a great personality.
Well, thank you. Some people find it off-putting, but my relatives don't count. So, yeah, I kind of flew through that. Anything you'd like to say? Add?
I would definitely use URSTA as a resource. They're
Yeah.
providing this through them, so definitely take up URSTA. But we offer tons of different trainings for drivers. We have a really great de-escalation training, a really great trauma-informed training, all free, self-paced that you can take. The pass is definitely our most popular.
Yeah, and they were how I got to go to a class and have a person, but I guess they can do it virtually, and it sounds wild. They get 10 people, you do a virtual training where the guy shows you a wheelchair and where to secure, and then over a 2-week period you have to show him you know what to do. So if you're doing it virtually, there has to be you have to be able to hold the camera, tablet, whatever with the camera on it, have a wheelchair, and then a lift vehicle. And basically it's one-on-one, and then you just show them where you attach and why. So, pretty cool. And who thinks scooters are the worst things ever invented for people with... Yeah, if you didn't raise your hands, I'm questioning if you've ever secured a scooter. Again, the blue straps, I love those for those. If you have a lot of them, Q-Strain actually sells a special webbing strap just for those. I don't know what they'd charge for it, but it's might be something to look for if you transport a lot of people with those. So we have a nice lady that goes to and from dialysis in one, and she's unable to transfer. So there you go. All right, welcome back to you brave souls that dare to return. Thank you. I appreciate it. So let's see, how do I want to broach this subject? Training. So one thing we do with our organization is we do the interview, and then we do what I call a second interview or ride-along, where we give the person an opportunity. Hey, would you like to get on a van with a driver, meet some of the passengers, half an hour. We try not to go too much longer than that. And all they do is just ride along, and they can ask any questions they want. Meet the passengers, and just ask the driver what's it like to work there. And it's been very helpful, because they either come back and they say, it's great, I love it, sign me up, or we've had a couple that have said, it's not for me. Knees, where, I don't think I could do that much kneeling every day. Okay, well, we understand. One guy I thought would do really well, but he said, I just don't know if I'm comfortable working with people like that. Good, that also tells us information, so sorry, thank you. Then, of course, we've had a couple where they should have been back here. Where in the world are they? We called the driver. Oh, they said they wanted to hang out for a while longer, so the half hour to an hour turns into 2 hours, and well, thanks for doing that. We didn't mean for the driver to abduct you. Sorry, our bad. So that's good. And then, of course, they get to see what the vehicle's like. They get to see something about its size, what the securements are like, and just get used to it. So we've had one lady at least that came back and says, that's too big for me. No. And we just use the shuttle bus types, so cutaways. So another thing we did when we did that, where we tipped the van over and did that training, part of that we also invited when we did that part of the rodeo, we had two passengers that used wheelchairs come in, and they were the actual passengers that we did the securement competition on, and they just loved it. They thought that was a hoot. And then we had two people come in who I'm going to tell you about, Mark and Ellen, and we had them just do a training like this, talking to our drivers. So Mark, well, let's start with this. So George was going through life, and George was okay. He was just making it. And then he met Lorraine, and they had some interests and some hobbies and some things in common. So they started to date, and then they decided to get married, and they were happy. And then one day he met Clara, and the skies opened. The rainbow appeared, his heart swelled, and he felt guilty because he was in love, but he was married to Lorraine, and he didn't know what to do, and it was eating him up, and he so wanted to be with Clara, and back and forth. And Lorraine could tell there was something going on. She could tell there was a problem. And finally, she just had enough. She called him into the kitchen. She says, dude, I'm sorry, but it's obvious something's not working here. I'm not up to this. I'm out. I want a divorce. She walked out the door, gone forever. And George burst into song. I can see Clara now. Lorraine is gone. That will haunt you for the rest of your lives. You're welcome. Mark told me that joke. Every time we took Mark to dialysis, and every time he got on, he had another joke. And he told me that one 5 years ago, and it's never left my brain. So I inflict it on as many people as I can. Sorry. But that was Mark. And So what would happen, and I suggest if you have passengers that can do this in your agencies, reach out to them. Most of the passengers, they'd probably be willing to help. So what would happen is I'd have my trainee, I'd say I want to be on the route, put us on the route that's taking Mark to dialysis. We'd drive there, and then I'd say, all right, I'm taking over, I'm driving, you go sit back there with Mark. And I'd say, Mark, do you mind doing your training? Not at all, happy to do it. And then he'd tell them a joke. And then he'd start his training. And it was really useful because it's one thing for me to sit there and tell a trainee, you need to drive gently, you need to take your corners slowly and gradually. It's another when it's the passenger. And he's saying, okay, Kevin just went over those railroad tracks, and this is what it felt like to us. It wasn't bad. But in 6 hours, I'm going to be coming home from dialysis. And here's what those railroad tracks are going to feel like. And if you take them different, if you take them rough, if you're fast over them and abrupt, you may be cleaning up a mess. I may throw up on your bus. Sorry, but your driving affects me. And so I strongly recommend you do that. And Ellen, she had a visual impairment. She used a seeing eye dog. And I'd do the same thing. Hey, Ellen, would you mind giving him your training? Not at all. And she would talk about all the many rules, work with somebody with a visual impairment, all of the rules, the things they need to know about seeing eye dogs. Don't make eye contact. You don't get to know its name. You shouldn't ask. No, you cannot pet it. That dog is working. Leave it alone. Don't, all of those little details. And I strongly recommend you do that. If you have, and COVID ruined everything. Mark passed away. He decided dialysis was no longer for him, and I miss him. And Ellen, she's still around, but she's more in a care center. She doesn't get out too much, doesn't use our service much. But I've got my eye on a couple of victims, potential people to recruit to help take over that training because of how useful it is. So use your don't use, that's a bad word, but ask your passengers if they'd be willing to help. So, alrighty. Our customers. So the title of this slide is Our Customers and I'm a Putz. A little bit. So, we'll call him Mike. Name's changed to protect the guilty. Innocent. Mike was 12 years old, living in Orem, riding his bicycle one day, and a car encroached into the crosswalk and hit him. After that, he had limited use of his left arm and side, and he couldn't talk very loud. He was very quiet. He lost a lot of the use of his voice. He couldn't speak loud. And he was on our service. He's been riding our service longer than I've been there. Nice guy, funny guy. So when I first met Mike, and I was driving him, I turned onto State Street there in Orem, and I thought it was a nice, gentle turn. We drove, I had him and his sister, Sarah, on, and she didn't have any use of her arms or legs. She communicated she could blink. And anyway, I turned the corner, and I'm cruising down State Street, and I hear, when you get a second, and I look in my passenger mirror, and me and Sarah are alone on that bus. Mike has disappeared. So I, what the? And he was in the seat right behind me, and he had rolled out of the seat and caught himself with his luckily good right arm and was just there on the floor. And he looks at me and just, when you get a second. So I panic, hurry, get pulled over, throw on the flashers, raise, turn around, jump out of the seat. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. It's okay. I'm sorry, I just really, and I'm apologizing profusely because I feel so guilty. And he's it's okay, it's okay. And he keeps pointing. And finally okay, he's all right. I look where he's pointing, and there by the lift, I pick up and I hand him back his comb. And then the puzzle pieces start to fall into place. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I get there eventually, and as I'm watching, he leans way over so he can look into my passenger mirror, and he starts combing his hair again. Dude, were you doing that when I turned the corner? Well, there's a new lady at my facility, and I want to look good for her. All right, I can't blame you for that. But moving forward, I learned from my mistakes. He always sat by the window and never by the aisle. And more than once, I'd see him laid out on the seat trying to look in my mirror. So that's Mike. Awesome sense of humor. And I tell you that story to remind you, which you already know this, preaching to the choir. Our customers aren't packages. They're people. They have good days, they have bad days, they have all manner of emotions, and we need to remember that. And that's one thing I harp on my trainees. They'll get on the bus and they'll just stand there. I'll say, talk to them. Come on. Talk to them. Ask how you can help. It's easy. So I'm a putz, a little bit. So I've driven Mike for many years. He's moved out of his mom's house. When I first started picking him up, he just used a cane. And then he went to a walker, and now he's in a manual wheelchair. And somebody asked to help him around, but at the time of this incident story, he was using a walker. So I'm getting the walker ready. He's unbuckled. And a staff member comes out who I've never seen before. He says, "Hey, Mike, who's this guy?" "Oh, he must be my new staff member." "Oh, all right." The guy gets on the bus, and he looks at me, and he says, "Did Mike have a good day today?" Like I said, putz, a little bit. I found a teaching moment in the wild. This is on you, dude. So the guy's standing here. I say, "Well, I don't know. Let's ask him. Mike, did you have a good day today?" Mike's got a huge grin. He thinks this is hilarious. He saw what was coming a mile away. "Well, it was okay." I have to report back now. He said it was okay, not bad. The guy is looking at me angry. He's peeved. He's cheesed because I'm being sarcastic, which you shouldn't do, by the way. Don't be sarcastic. Learn from my mistakes. Nowadays, I probably wouldn't do this. I say that because my boss is sitting right there. But you could see the light bulb moment. He's there, he's glaring at me, and then you see the light bulb go off. I messed up. I'm talking to the driver, not the guy who I'm supposed to be working with, helping. And so he still didn't say another word to me, but he at least says, "Hey, Mike, nice to meet you. I'm so-and-so. I'm your new staff." He got it. Now, could I have and should I have been a bit more diplomatic in explaining that to him? Yes. But again, a little bit of a putz. So, again, I tell you that, just keep in mind, and I'm sure you guys all have a million stories, and I'm probably going to have to rely on you to help me by telling some of them, because again, lovely computer, my video we were going to watch is not working, but I'll send you a link to it, because it's a cool one about customer sensitivity. 10 minutes long, sums it up really good. Do's, don'ts. Don't yell at a person who's hard of hearing, or it's not going to do anything. If someone's blind, don't yell at them. It's not going to help. Just because they can't see doesn't mean they can't hear. And so Ellen, I'd love to tell stories if you couldn't tell. So Ellen, I went to pick her up at the temple, and I come around the van, and she's there talking to another lady, and the lady broke every rule in the book. She's there about whatever they were talking about, just grabs her arm and starts dragging her to the bus. And Ellen is trying to be polite. "Let me go. I've got this. It's okay. Meanwhile, I'm there going, "Ellen, stop. You need to stop." And the lady walked her right into the swing doors. At that point, Ellen loses her cool and let go of me, throws the lady's arm off. The lady says, I'm sorry, it's okay. We get on the bus, and she then proceeds, we spend that 20 minutes with her, because I'm cheaper than a therapist, with her venting about how people shouldn't grab people who are blind. And anyway, it was cathartic for her. It helped, and hopefully her friend learned something valuable. The other fun story I have with Ellen is the stars align sometimes. I'm driving along. Another driver had picked up Ellen to take her somewhere, and he gets on the radio and he says, "Dispatch, I have a question. Do we charge a fare for a seeing eye dog?" Stars aligned. I was her next driver. I'm the return trip driver. This is going to be good. And sure enough, it was awesome. I get out to greet her. "You're not, oh, Kevin, I'm glad it's you. You're not going to believe what that guy tried to do." I says, "I heard. It was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing." And later, the guy, in his defense, claimed that he was just trying to generate more revenue for the company. Okay. I was trying to be funny. Right, don't believe that one either. It's all right. That was before I was a trainer, by the way. Just throw my predecessor under the bus. Anyway, I'm telling you these little stories. Just see, and I'm sure you guys have a million of them yourselves. Funny little quirks, things our customers do. They have good days, they have bad. How do you handle it when a customer's having a bad day? Do I hear mine? Sometimes, sadly, I ignore them because it's what's safest. We have a gentleman who gets on the bus, and when he's approaching, I'll say, "Good morning, how are you today?" "I'm just leave me alone." Okay, that's my cue. I follow him onto the bus, just to as far as the driver's door, because our policy is we follow them to their seat and observe seatbelt use in case they need our help. Offer help. "Do you need help with the seatbelt?" "Nope, I got it." When he's like this, I stand back, he clicks it, and then he'll yell at me, "I'm ready, we can go now." Okay, dude. And then I start driving. I learned that works. We ignore each other. Because in my youth, I tried, "I'm sorry you're having a bad day. Is everything?" "No, nothing's okay. Leave me alone." And then he'd start, "You drivers, you all hate me. You hate me." "No, I don't." "Yes, you do." "No, I don't." "Yes, you do." And then we could do that all day. And then he'll start demanding to be taken home, and it just escalates. So I've learned with him de-escalation. Learn your passengers. Him, it's best just not to say anything. Let it go. Don't take it personally. How I think of it is, who are we this day? Who am I today? Today, I'm a little nervous about doing this, a little irritated with technology because I know it hates me, and it doesn't understand when I curse it out and threaten it with violence, and that frustrates me. That's who I am today. Who will I be tomorrow? I don't know. Probably similar, maybe a little different. We had a driver that was picking up a gentleman in Spanish Fort, and he came out and he was just rude. He was yelling, cursing, and she called on the radio when I was dispatching at the time, and she said, "Do I have to transport him? He's swearing at me. He's being rude." I said, "Well, first of all, do you fear violence? Are you afraid he's going to hurt you?" "No, because this lady's tough, and I'm pretty sure she could take him." And she knows she could take him. But more to the point, no, she didn't feel physically threatened. Emotionally, yes. He was berating her, he was being rude, he was being a jerk. Can we refuse transport for that? So my solution was to ask her, "Do you feel safe transporting him? And is this just who he is today?" And that gave her a moment to think, take a breath. She said, "Okay, I got this." She boarded him, and halfway, it was a 25-minute drive, probably halfway there, he was still cursing, swearing, saying he hated her, wished her dead, and really horrible stuff. By the last half, and by the time they get to his destination, I'm sorry, I'm having a bad morning. I didn't get the cereal I wanted. We were out. Our driver was a convenient victim of his outrage. And so by the time he tried to give her a hug, as I understand, she, no, but it's okay. Now they're, I don't know if they're best pals, but at least they will get along. And this guy, he's awesome. He's very funny. I think his parents encourage him. I don't know. He'll get on the bus, and last month it was puppies and dogs, and what kind of dog do you have, and what kind would you want? And before that, and now as we're getting closer to Halloween, Ken can tell you he's transported him. He'll start talking. I had him and a lady I was taking to dialysis. She did not know what she was getting into when she boarded the bus that day. He starts talking about fighting the devil, and whose side do you want to be on, and do you want to, and about vampires, and just all this, it's wild stuff. And this poor lady's, what's going on? It's just who he is today. It's all right. Our passengers and who they are. One of my big screw-ups, and I should have known better, but it didn't even occur to me at the time. I'm there, the trainee's here, driving the bus, and he just mentions that his grandfather is in the hospital with pneumonia, and he's not sure he's going to make it, and he's asking me about our time-off policy in regards to leave and bereavement leave, and I'm telling him, and I hope he pulls through everything, and that was it. It was a short 3-minute conversation. I didn't even think about the passengers sitting behind us. 3 weeks later, I go and I pick up this lady. She comes racing up to me and she says, "Is so-and-so's grandpa okay?" And by this time, I know the results. I know how the story ends, so I'd forgotten about it. And I what? And she says, "So-and-so's grandpa, he was in pneumonia." And then the memory triggers, and I says, oh, he's okay. He's fine. He's in recovery. He's in a care center. He's going to be okay. It was close there, but he's going to be all right. And she, thank goodness. I've been praying for him every night. I've been so worried about him. I feel this big because I put that on her, because I didn't think about the conversation we were having and who was listening. That's all on me. Trainee didn't know any better. He asked an innocent question. Now, I should have probably tried to, redivert. Maybe let's talk about that later. But it didn't even occur to me. But again, our passengers, some of them, like my sister, she was the type of person, they feel things deeply. So, again, it's a good thing to remember. Keep in mind who's listening and how it's going to affect our customers. So, anything religious, political, we got to be very careful about that. I had a passenger who's passed away due to COVID. Him and his sister rode the bus every day. They both had visual impairments, couldn't see. And one day the aide gets on at the facility he went to, and she thinks she's being funny. It's raining cats and dogs. She tries to be humorous. And she's, and this will tell you how long ago it was. She says, all this rain. And he says, oh yeah, it's unbelievable. It's raining cats and dogs. And she says, yeah, that damn Obama. He goes nuts. He starts flailing at her with his cane. Don't you badmouth Obama. He's the president. You shouldn't badmouth. And we're both having to jump back to keep from getting hit. And she's, I'm sorry. She didn't know his political affiliations and so I step in. I say, hey, it's okay. I don't care. I don't think he's causing the weather. Can I help you off the bus? You can help me, but she cannot. So he let me help him off the bus and into the facility. Again, she thought it was an innocent comment, but it ruined his day. So just something to keep in mind. Does that make sense? I see glazed eyes. And so hopefully you found this a little entertaining, educational, little something to take away at the very least. Maybe you'll take away that URSTA should vet its presenters better. I got a million of them. I love telling stories. But now we're going to see how much damage I can do. I mean, how much empathy we can get you to feel. Gary, Ken, if you're going to help me, if you could help me. You saw me sneakily bring this in earlier. How many people do we have? Pair up. You guys pair up for me. Gary, Ken, we're going to have you guys start. So we'll pick on my boss. So reach your hand in without looking and grab a pair of glasses. Okay, put those on. What can you see?
Counter that way.
Okay.
Can't see the right.
So basically, these glasses have all been modified. Some are for someone who's completely blind. As you can see, these are just for, what is this, a macular type of thing where all you can see is the peripherals. So we're going to team up. You're each going to take a pair. And then the person not wearing the glasses at the time is to protect the person wearing them.
Job's on the line.
And make sure. Okay, so Ken, let's get randomly grab you some glasses out of there. And these are all brand new, never been worn before. Oh, you wimp, you took the easy ones. No, just kidding. I know, you're fine. Okay, put those on. How'll that affect you? How do yours affect you?
Well, I can't see anyone to the right. A few people to the left.
A little bit. You only have peripheral vision. So, and that's how some people work. So, all right, come up, grab some glasses, partner up. We're going to go for a little walk. All right. Did everybody make it back? Did we lose anybody? I was aiming for getting 90% back at least. I figure that's a good enough number. Did we make it? Okay. Okay. So what did you think of that? Little, yeah. And what about your customers? They'd live with that 24/7. That's got to be hard. Now, URSTA went and bought these from some company that makes these. My United Way nonprofit. So Gary's always encouraging me to save where I can. A sleep mask. A sleep mask. You put it on to sleep at night to keep out the light. They'd like $2 on Amazon. That's what I'm going to use for my trainees when we go through this. So who said it? This was eye-opening. Good one. So yeah, what'd you think? I give you a different perspective. Let make you see the world a little differently. Yes. So yeah, and that's what it all boils down to with us and our customers. Put ourselves in their shoes. You got Mike. He was riding his bike, happy 12-year-old, got hit by a car. Got my cousin, ran over by a car, same car twice. We had a gentleman who had his own business. He serviced fire extinguishers and what do you call these things? Sprinkler systems, thank you. One winter he took a corner too fast. Truck rolled. Back living with his parents. Having to ride our service. And this is something I tell all of my trainees when I tell them these little stories. Our customer that got bucked off by a horse, he hates horses now because now he uses a power chair rest of his life. He communicates by pointing to letters on a piece of paper and spells out what he needs. I don't want to, huh?
Spinal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to end on a down note. I'll try to cheer you up after, but we are all just one bad day away from driving the bus to riding in the bus. It's, so now you think about I can see Clara now, Joe. Can you cheer up? So, any questions? We got 10 more minutes. Any questions? I've been doing this for a while. Do any of you have any questions, ideas?
Oh, sorry.
No, you go first.
Yeah, you.
That's not a question. I was just going to say, we did a training one time where we wore like those different glasses, and we rode on the bus.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And it was a really different experience if you're not used to that.
You can't see what's coming or feel that you know you're going to turn. Or
That's great. That's a good idea.
So it made you a little bit more aware of how it feels in the back of the bus. And it goes going and it
Right.
goes back to the
So you reminded me, part of the training I do is, and Gary knows this, the boss knows, and I usually try to pick one of the older buses, but I put my trainees in the very, very back. And then I show them hard acceleration, hard deceleration, hard cornering. I drive it like I stole it. Not really. I drive it the way I've seen people drive it. I've done ride-along evaluations, and I'm back there going, really? You know I'm here, right? But that's what I do. I take speed bumps. It's not, I mean, I don't want to ruin our poor new trainees, but I take some speed bumps a little hard so they know. Because it's so amplified. What you feel versus what the guy in the back feels, the passengers in the back, radically different. So again, if your boss is willing, you have an old van you don't care about too much, throw them in the back, beat them up a little bit, just to give them empathy. And that's what it all comes down to is, I think this world would be a better place if we were a bit more empathetic with each other, treated each other the way we want to be treated. Did you have a question, comment?
It was completely off topic, though.
Go for it.
No, I know we have one of our people here that has never done wheelchair securement.
Okay.
Since you're the master, I'm just going to go over it real quick since we have to do it today.
No,
Script, just like, you
I don't have it on me, and I don't have it memorized. But
don't? I thought you would be like, yes.
am I? I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. Am I?
Not my circus.
Oh, I don't know if I.
Not won't hurt anybody.
I don't know if I dare, because if there's people here that are going to compete and they weren't here, I don't know if that could be seen as an unfair advantage. And in my heart, I'm a rule follower.
not here because they were out getting the snack. That's their fault.
I think I can safely say and do everything. If you're going to do it, you might as well say it. And be loud. Make sure they hear you. Like me. Loud! Speak from the diaphragm, as they taught me in school so many years ago.
Is that going to be done on a cutaway, do you know?
Yeah,
Yes.
all of them.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to,
They always use a cutaway. So.
My first rodeo.
oh, yeah.
I saw what you did there. Nice. Any other questions, comments, any ideas I can steal and use in my training? The only thing I know is that I don't know everything. So, you guys have any ideas for me? I will steal them. I'm telling you now. I admit it right up front. So.